Welcome everybody. We're going to give people 2 more minutes to log in and find their way through the login screens. So while we're doing that, I would just love it if you could find the chats and introduce yourself. Tell us your name, your college, and your role. So I'm Crystal. I'm from Pierce College, and I am the director of our tutoring center. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be focusing on Think Aloud and paired problem solving, which is a really cool strategy that we use in tutoring an awful lot in formal and in informal ways. We're going to talk about how we can break it down, formalize it, and practice it amongst one another. So I just wanted to give us, start us off by telling us who we are. So my name is Crystal. I am the Center for Academic Success Director at Pierce College in Los Angeles. And we also have with us Jake. Say hello, Jake.
Hello, Jake.
All right, there you go. Jake is an art, history, and philosophy tutor at Pierce College. And we also have Dennis. Want to introduce yourself, Dennis?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dennis. I'm an anatomy tutor at Pierce College for almost 2 or 3 years now, Crystal.
A long time. A long time. I know.
And yeah, and just also working for our, we call it our front desk, but because there's no venue, so we have, it's just a CS program that we have for the help desk. So we get to do that. Yeah.
And I also want to give a big shout out, although she's not here, to Rosanna Salmian from Chaffey College. We absolutely stole this presentation from her. So shout out to her. We reorganized it, but this was all her. So today we're just going to do 2 quick things. We're going to talk about what a Think Aloud is and talk about how we can explain that to a student. And we're going to just apply one common metacognitive routine known as TAPS in a short online tutoring session. So how it's going to work is that for the next hour, we're going to talk about and actually demonstrate what a Think Aloud and a paired problem solving strategy looks like. So get ready to participate. So I'm going to upload, or somebody's going to upload, Dennis is going to upload 3 documents in the chat over the course of the session, and you'll be kind of downloading it as we go so we can work together today. After the hour is done, you can stay, and we'll stay until 4:30 to ask any questions and talk about any particulars that you'd like to discuss. And then again, just keep your eyes on that chat because that's where all of our materials are going to go. Everyone's going to start off muted, but you're not going to end muted because this is going to be a high participation kind of situation. So go ahead and type questions, comments in the chat, or raise your Zoom hand and we'll ask you to unmute yourself. So all of the action that you need is going to be in that toolbar below. You can click on chats to get all of our documents. You can click on participants and then find the little blue hand to raise your hand. You can click on the little blue hand again to lower it. So if you want to practice raising and lowering your blue hand right now, you can do so, and I promise not to call on you. There's also a mute button at the very bottom. Click it to unmute yourself and click it again to mute yourself one more time. So we always like to start off with some community agreements because this will help us get our heads together and kind of know the direction we're going in. So today is going to be a lot of active participation. So we're going to read, discuss, think, and we're going to have small breakout groups, pairs. So we ask you to be present. So for sometimes, for me, I go to a lot of meetings and a lot of trainings, and I would say for about 30% of those trainings, the training is just on in the background and I'm doing something else. I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, my camera's off, I'm checking emails, and this is playing in the background. So that's fine, that's COVID life, that's great. I just want to warn you that that's not going to work with this particular workshop because we're going to be so active. We have other workshops where you can just play it in the background, but today's not it. You'll actually be reading and thinking and talking together. So if you need to step away, just send me a message in the chat so I don't put you in a breakout room because otherwise we'll leave somebody else in there all alone. We don't want that. It's totally fine to not get it right away. This is going to be a lot of material. We'll leave you with the material so you can stay, ask questions, read it through later, whatever works for you. If you're confused, that's okay. We love that. We're tutors, which means if you weren't confused and you didn't have questions, we wouldn't have jobs. So we're big fans of confusion. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. We want to hear them. And let's just take a moment to commit ourselves to being kind to each other. because it is a rough world out there. I don't know what the Central Valley smells like, but right now our entire world is burning down in SoCal. So just be kind to each other. There's pandemics, fires, televised racism. Let's create a space here where we can be supportive of one another as we learn these new skills. So with no further ado, let's introduce the TAPS process. So think aloud and paired problem solving, or TAPS. This is the reason we do this is it's a great strategy to surface and promote good learning strategies. Students know how to learn, they know how to think, they have study skills, but sometimes we do them so quickly that it's invisible, we don't even know we're doing it. This helps us slow our thinking down and surface our strategies. It also helps us create new strategies by talking through strategies with another person. We become more independent learners, right? Students are working together. They're not completely depending on that tutor to do all of the thinking for them. And it also is a great way to build metacognition and community. It helps people learn how to communicate with one another. The way we do TAPS is very, very simple. All we do is we have students pair up and we have them take turns. One thinks out loud for a problem, and we'll talk about how to do that. The other person listens and gives feedback. And then you switch, then the other person thinks out loud, the other person thinks and listens, and then after they've both done that, they do some crosstalk. This can be done between a tutor and a student, right? So the tutor shows a student how they would think aloud, and then has the student listen, and then you can switch where the student is thinking aloud and the tutor is listening. Or after you've done it once to model it, you can also do it between students. So students can pair up with another student and talk to each other. So there's a lot of different variations. We'll talk about some of those today. So the first thing we're going to ask you to do is download something in the chat. So Dennis is putting in an activity. It's called the TAPS activity. It's a Word document. So make sure you download it on your computer and then you can type right in it. If you have a hard time getting that document up, or you're having a hard time downloading it, then we can give you a link to download it. And it looks like Dennis might be having a little bit of a trouble, so I'll put the link in here now. There's the link to download it if you want to download it from us, or if you just want to take it directly from the chat. I'm uploading the activity now. So just remember, if you're downloading it, please download it on your computer before you start typing in it, because otherwise you'll be typing in a Google Doc and then everybody will see what you're typing. All right. So at this point, hopefully you've all downloaded it or linked to it. If you have trouble, or if it's not downloading, or if you're not linking to it, you can put your email in the chat and Dennis will actually just email it directly to you. Right? Anybody have any questions or trouble downloading it at this point? Okay, beautiful. All right. So now we are going to, yes, okay, so we're waiting for it to open. Okay, no worries, you got a problem. You have time for that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to upload an article that we're going to read together. So Dennis is also going to upload a PDF, so you can just download it and put it directly on your computer. Or he's also going to put up a link. So if you don't have Adobe, or if you're having a hard time downloading that PDF, you can go directly to the link and you can view it online. All right, so here comes the link. So you can either download it directly from the chat, or you can link to it in our Google Doc. Either way, I want you to get access to that document. So any questions or comments so far? Is anybody still having trouble opening it or accessing it? Cool. And then Kiara, did you get the other one to download?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Adobe to catch up.
Yeah, it takes forever, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've been working all day.
Yeah. In the meantime, you can actually, if you want to, you can just view it from the Google Drive also. That'll be a little bit faster too. So whether you've got it from the Google Drive or you have it now downloaded on your computer, either way works just fine. We're going to do a read together. So what this means is we're actually going to take 8 minutes to read the article. Because if we just give it to you and tell you to read it later, you're going to get busy and you're never going to read it. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes to read it together. As you're reading, I just want you to think of what's a powerful line or an interesting line that comes up for you, that surfaces as something that seems kind of interesting. Now, reading together can be a little bit awkward, especially if it's the first time you're doing that. So again, we like to set some community agreements or norms so we all kind of know what we're doing together and we can get our head in the game. First of all, let's just surface and accept the fact that it can be kind of awkward to read while other people are in the room or in the Zoom room. So let's just surface that and give ourselves some permission to just take a few silent minutes to read. It's okay to start anywhere you want to start, end anywhere you want to end, move through it in any way that makes sense to you. It's fine not to finish the article. All you need to do is find just a golden line or a concept. It's also okay to disagree with the author or have questions. And if you don't want people staring at you while you read, you can shut off your camera. It's entirely up to you. Now here's my Surgeon General's warning at the bottom. And that is from here on out, after the reading, everything that we do is going to be based on group work. So if you turned this on to just kind of have it in the background, please either make yourself present for the breakouts, or if you can't do that right now, I totally understand. No harm, no foul. We love you, no judgment. If you have to go, you can come back another time and we'll have other breakouts when you don't have other things going on, or we can also have breakouts where you can actually have it on in the background. This just isn't one of them. So any questions before I set my timer for 8 minutes? Okay, great. So let's just take a moment to read and I'll let you know when we're going to come back together. Go ahead. All right, we're going to come back together. Sorry for some of you, I know that that's not enough time to finish a reading. For some of us like me, I actually read slower when people are staring at me. So all of that is totally fine. We don't want you to finish the whole thing and master it. We really just want you to get one idea or one concept out of that. So I'm looking over the chat and I'm seeing that we've got some people from a lot of different places. We've got some tutors from CSU Monterey Bay. We've got ELAC in the house. We have Pierce in the house, and we have 3CSN in the house. So we got a really nice, diverse mix up. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna group us so we can get together and meet each other and exchange some of the ideas that we got out of that article. So I'm gonna create breakout rooms of 3 people. And so with those 3 people, when you get in there, you're gonna introduce yourself, say your name, your college, kind of what you hope to get out of today's session. And then you're just going to discuss one golden line, one thing that came up for you. And Jake and I are actually going to show you how to do that. So if you're not breakout savvy, you know what it looks like. All right, so here we go. Here's our little pretend breakout. All right, and begin. Hi there, my name is Crystal. I'm from Pierce College, and I'm just really excited to be here today because I love talking about TAPS. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Jake. I'm a multi-subject tutor at Pierce College.
Super rad. So tell me your golden line, Jake.
In the prerequisite skills for problem solving, the learning skills necessary to obtain other information required for the solution and motivation to want to solve the problem. I think that's really important because that's tutoring right there in a nutshell.
Beautiful. And scene. So that's just kind of how it goes. Introduce yourself, and then everybody just shares one observation or golden line. So I'm going to put us in breakout rooms. You have to accept the breakout room before you get in there, and then we'll have 5 minutes to just go around, discuss, and just kind of surface one question or one line. Any questions before we begin? All right, cool. In that case, I'll see you all back here in 5 minutes. All right, I am always very heartened when you close the breakout rooms and everybody waits until they get kicked out to come back. That's always a good sign. It's always a terrible sign when you close the breakout rooms and everybody jumps back right away without waiting that last minute, because it meant that the breakout rooms were torturous and awkward. But it sounds like there was some really good discussion going on. And I would just love to hear just a couple of highlights. I'd like to hear 2 people raise their Zoom hands and tell me, what did you think about the article? What did you hear somebody else say about the article? What did that mean to you and your practice? Anything at all that came up for you. So you can raise your Zoom hand or put your comment in the chat. All right, go ahead, please, Heba. Tell me how to pronounce your name first so I don't screw it up.
Yes, Heba.
Heba, okay, beautiful, go ahead.
So we talked about the importance of the analysis and problem solving. And I talked about the golden line, which is basically the Bloom's taxonomy, I guess.
Bloom's taxonomy, that's it.
Cognitive taxonomy.
Yeah.
And I also told the group that we've been taught how to think aloud when solving problems since we started school, but the breakdown of the levels of Bloom's cognitive taxonomy, including knowledge, comprehension, and application and analysis. Yeah, that's kind of makes sense now. Why we do the analysis parts.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And also it's beautiful to be able to demonstrate thinking on all the levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Some of your thinking is just application, some of your thinking is memorization, while other parts of your thinking are more deep analysis. Thank you, Heba, I appreciate that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to practice the think aloud and paired problem solving. So what we're going to do is we're going to put you back into those teams. You already know each other, so it'll be slightly less awkward. And you're actually going to dig in there and start solving some problems and listening to each other. So in order to do this, you're going to take out the TAPS activity handout that we uploaded earlier, and you are going to look at the top of page 2. It's number 3, and just in case you need it, here is the link to download it. Again, so that has all of the instructions on there. I'll go over the instructions, but sometimes it's really good to have it in multiple modalities, so it'll be in a couple of different places. All right, so what we're going to do with this is I'm going to put you back into those breakout rooms, and when you get in there, take a minute just to read through all of the instructions and make sure you know what's going on. All right, and then decide who the first problem solver is going to be and who the first listener is going to be. So there will be 1 problem solver and 2 listeners, right? And if you are a facilitator, Jake or Dennis, you'll be a listener, right? So you're going to select one of 2 problems, either a math problem or a pretty heavy text, and you'll find those on pages 4 and 5 of that activity. Okay. So on pages 4 to 5, there's a math problem. And then on the very last page, there's what we call a chunky text. It's actually an excerpt from the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. So pick the one that's more challenging for you. Whatever it is for you, pick the one that's going to be a little bit harder for you so that you can demonstrate or think out loud without it being too easy or too automatic. All right. So I'm going to Dennis is going to upload one more document. This is called a roll cards. So the roll cards will help us think through how we are a problem solver and how we are a listener. So he's uploaded a PDF there. And of course, again, there's the link to it. So if your Adobe is taking a minute, you can also just look at it in our Google Drive. So essentially, if you're the problem solver, you're going to talk through the problem for 2 minutes, right? Keep your own time. You're going to say things like, oh, okay, one of the things that I notice is this, and hey, I wonder about that, or, you know, I could try this. So just do it like you would be doing it silently, but kind of do it out loud, and we'll show you what that looks like. While the problem solver is problem solving, the listeners are listening, and not just passively, but actively listening. You're thinking about what are they focusing on? What strategies are they using? Where could they elaborate? Where could they be talking a little bit more about things? So again, if you're the tutor and you're listening to a student talk through a problem, how would you help that student solve that problem better? All right. So after you both take a turn, you're just gonna kind of talk about what did it feel like, what did it look like, what strategies did you use, what tips do you have to offer, and then we'll come back together and see how it went. All right, so we're gonna demonstrate first. So we have our demonstrator, Jake, ready to go. He has selected the chunky text, which I think actually might be the one that's easier for him, but that's okay. If you pick the one that's easier, no one will know. So I'm going to set my timer for just 30 seconds, and then Jake is going to show you what it sounds like to think out loud for 30 whole seconds. Are you ready, Jake?
Yeah.
All right. So my timer's not working, so let me get ready. All right. Think out loud. Go.
Okay, so the first thing I'm seeing is that this is translated. This isn't in a primary language, so I have to keep that in mind. It's in chapters, so I'm sort of thinking in line with literature more than other kinds of writing. Okay, so it's broken up into points. So I want to keep in mind how it's separated.
Okay, that's it. So just give you a little taste. So that's kind of what the problem solver would do. They would just start talking it through, just like they would if they were silently at home. Now, I was the listener, right? So here's what I noticed, right? So I noticed, Jake, that you didn't actually start by reading the text. You started by looking over the entire text and thinking about what you already knew. So you noticed the structure of the text, you noticed the translation, you were bringing up things that you already knew, and you were making a plan to read through it. And I thought that that was really smart, because sometimes when we dive right into a text, we completely lose the meaning. So if I were to make a suggestion, I'd be interested to know if you would take notes as you went along, or if you like circled things that you understood well. That might help you get through this text, right? And scene. That's kind of how it works. One person reads, the other person listens, and then the other person gives some feedback. So again, to summarize, in round one, we are going to, you're going to spend a couple of minutes to get organized. You're going to read through the instructions, decide who the first problem solver is and who the first listeners are going to be, set a timekeeper. The first problem solver gets 2 minutes, and then each listener gets 1 minute to respond. If you finish early, you can go ahead and do some crosstalk, talk about how did it feel, did you like anything, or do you use something like this in your session, or how would you use it, right? Any questions on the task? All right, in that case, I'm gonna open the same rooms back up, and I'll see you back here in 6 minutes for a debrief, okay? Here we go. Welcome back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back from your journey. It's good to see you all back again. All right. So at this point, you've all just had a little bit of a hint. So I'd just like you to take a moment to reorient yourself. And I'd like a share out or two about how did that feel? How did it feel to be on the spot? How did it feel to slow down your thinking to that crawl? How did it feel to listen to somebody else's thinking and give them feedback? That's kind of weird. And just how weird was it, or how did it feel to just take note of how somebody else was thinking? So we'll just wait for somebody to raise their Zoom hand and give a couple of share outs so we can just get a sense of what happened in the other breakouts.
Hi. So
Hi.
I feel like this activity was actually really interesting. Like it made me more aware of my own way of approaching a problem, and just how I can describe my thinking, and how the things I identify first when I'm thinking before approaching actually solving something.
Beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Cameron.
As the person doing the thinking, it was kind of interesting. I did the math one, and I haven't done geometry in a very long time. I was back in high school, I was doing geometry. So sitting there, I made sure that I said everything that was crossing my mind. It was kind of interesting. It was helpful speaking out loud, because speaking out loud meant that I was saying what I was thinking and kind of cementing what I thought and kind of giving a cues of what I'm trying to go through. It was weird, because I was sitting there going, wow, yeah, I admitted I haven't done this in a long time. The most recent math I've done is statistics, and that's not anything like this at all.
Yep. Right. Really puts us in our students' shoes, doesn't it? Because we're so good at political science. Sometimes it's good to see what it's like to be on the other side of that, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Heba.
Frustrating.
What's that?
A little frustrating. But
yeah, it's super frustrating, right? But again, it gives us empathy for what our students are going through, right? That's what they experience.
Definitely. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Go ahead, Heba.
So I did the math problem too. So it was a little I have the background knowledge. It's just that when I talk aloud, it's sometimes my ideas are unorganized. So when I say them, I feel like the other person may not get what I'm saying. So I try to reorganize what I'm saying again in clear points. Yeah, so that's the process I went through.
Yeah, well, you made sense to Sarah, so that's
okay. That's great.
All right, beautiful. So yeah, again, it's a great way to sort of look at what our thinking actually does. Sometimes we didn't even realize that we were that disorganized in our thinking, or that sort of the circular. And other times it gives us a great opportunity to give empathy for some of our students and what they're going through, because we're so good at our subjects, we forget about how awkward it is for somebody who's not in that subject to work through it. So we're going to go into round 2. So we're just going to put you right back in there, last breakout, and you're going to have a second person be the problem solver. So just same instructions, but switch roles. You can either start where the first person left off on the same problem, or you could use a different problem. It's up to you. But this time we'll just give you 4 minutes. So just 2 minutes to think out loud, and then 1 minute for each person to give feedback. All right, any questions? All right, last round, here we go. And beautiful. All right, thank you. It's always nice to take a moment for reflection. Sometimes we just get information thrown at our faces so fast, we have no time to sort it out. So I think it's really refreshing to just take a minute and think, where does this go in my brain and how will I apply it? I'm wondering if I could get a couple of share outs. We'll wait for somebody to raise their Zoom hand and just tell us what you reflected on. Is this something that you already use? Is this something you'd like to use? And how would you modify it? Okay, go ahead, Kira.
So I definitely use TAPS when I'm working with a tutee, when they're working on a big piece of writing like a case study or a literature review. Those are the kind of the most common papers I see.
Cool.
Especially because some of the sections of a case study sound very similar to each other, but they're very different.
Yeah, so you help them think out loud what the difference is between the case studies?
Yeah, and when a tutee comes in with a completed piece of writing, what I usually do is I have them read it out loud to me and explain their thoughts.
Wonderful. Great. So just getting them to verbalize those thoughts, and then you can see what's going on, so you can help kind of get in there and point them in a different direction if they're going in a direction that isn't productive, right?
Especially like if it's a class I don't know, so it's stuff I'm not familiar with, I need to have them explain what that means to me, and they actually realize like, oh, this isn't right, and then they'll correct it.
Yeah. And what's beautiful, they're explaining it to you, but they're also explaining it to themselves, right? How many times have we had a student where you're just like, okay, well, talk to me out loud about it, and then they talk to you out loud, and then they're just like, oh. So sometimes that's all it takes, right? It's to surface that thinking. Right?
We call it the aha moment.
That's right, those aha
moment.
Yeah. Thanks, Kara. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, go ahead, Cameron.
So I definitely find the TAPS useful with students because this semester they have to write a paper in my class I'm embedded in about Black Lives Matter and become the police. So it's helpful to have them like first, like, I don't know what it is. I'm like, okay, so what do you think? Let's talk about what you do know about the subject. And then we work from like what they know, what they don't know, like where they can go from there. And then we talk about resources. And then we talk out loud, like what are good resources. And so it's really useful to have that kind of talking out loud, thinking in conversation with the tutees, because there's a lot of times that they doubt that they know the subject. They actually have some knowledge that they just undersell themselves on because they're like, oh, I just don't get it. And they don't understand it completely, but they have some knowledge.
Great. So it helps surface what they already know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and also, this is also something that we do commonly in math, but we don't necessarily call it TAPS, but just showing somebody like, this is how I would solve a problem, and thinking it through out loud is very helpful. So it's easily applicable in some of the math, but it is just as easily applicable in any area, right? So let me show you how I read Homer. Let me show you how I make sense of Foucault, or let me show you how, I look at this anatomy model, right? So anything you can do also, so it's not just asking your students to think out loud, but you can have your students watch you think out loud so they can model some of their strategies after the strategies that you're doing as well. So that brings us to the end of our first hour. Thank you so much for staying with us today. We have a couple of things coming up that I wanted to talk about. We have a peer power design lab coming up, which is basically just 6 hours of doing stuff like this. What strategies can we use to make learning awesome and to create these tutoring sessions that are completely centered on the student and not centered on somebody lecturing. You notice I didn't do any lecturing today. It was all you. So if you want to learn more about how to do that stuff where you're not lecturing, you're leading activities, go to 3csn.org. I'm going to put it in the chat. And you can sign up for our Peer Power Design Lab. It's on Fridays, the end of October and into November from 10:30 to 12 p.m. Also, we'll be doing this wayfinding series every other week. So if you want to join us in 2 weeks, so we are going to be doing one on interactive peer learning tools. So something on like Kahoot, word cloud. What are some fun games and activities that you can do with your students that are learning based, that are perfect for doing online, that's actually we can't even do face to face. So really we're thinking about what are the advantages of all being stuck online together. How can we capitalize on the opportunities and not just think about all the things that we can't do, because we know we can't do them. Let's not focus on that right now. Let's focus on what we can do. So thank you so much, Megan. Thank you, everybody else. If you would like to stick around and talk some more, we'll be here, but we do want to be respectful of everybody's time, and we know that some of you have commitments at 4 o'clock. So if you'd like to stay and ask questions, if not, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you, and we hope to see you back here in other ways. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank
Jessica.
you.
Thank you.
You have a good
Thank you.
one.
Thank
Have a good
you.
one.
Thank you, Heba. Thank you for sharing out. We appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you.